Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be covering seasons and sectors. The purpose of the script is to find repetitive patterns within select sectors and trying to allocate some capital on the best performing sector each month throughout the year. I have built two functions that'll help us run this script. Our first function, called mo returns, is going to take an XCS object containing the open, high, low, close of the sector we want to take a look at, and it's going to output one of two things depending on the XTS flag. So if XTS is equal to true, it'll return the monthly return as an XTS object for the stock or ETF that we pass in. I want to emphasize that the monthly return is the actual return for the month. For example, if the given month is March, it's going to take the difference between the last price traded in March and the first one to calculate returns. Whereas the functions in R that we have for monthly returns often include the last observation of the previous month, and that is why I went ahead and built this function. Now, if the XCS object is set to false, it'll return a table similar to the one in performance analytics called table returns, I believe, where we display the monthly returns for each calendar year inside of the data that we pass in. Now, in an attempt to avoid overfitting, I have added a parameter called exclude and years, which takes in an integer so that we don't incorporate those returns when choosing the best sector each month. So I'll go ahead and open up this function and we'll go over it. When we pass in our stock or ETF data containing the open, high, low, close, it's going to take a look at the index and extract all the unique years inside of that data set. The next line will use exclude and years to remove any years we don't want to incorporate in our calculations. Depending on whether the user wants to return an XCS object or a data frame, I have added these blocks. If the parameter XCS is true, it'll step into this block. And for each of the months in the given year, we're going to subset our data set. We're going to extract the first adjusted close in the given month and year, and also the last one to calculate the monthly return. So this will be one observation, and we're going to return that as an XCS object and order by the last date within that given month. If the XTS flag is set to false, we'll do something very similar where we pass in the years and the months, but this time we're going to return it as a data frame, and using the same methodology, we're going to calculate the annual return. And since these are percentages, I multiplied them by 100 to make our table look nicer. And once we have all the returns, we're going to row bind all of the years, and we're going to reorder to make sure that we always start in January in case we have ETFs that start in different months. Depending on the XTS flag is what it will return. Now, in our second function called getSelectMonths, we need to pass in an XCS object and a vector containing the selected months. So it'll subset the XTS object for those particular months. And if we open this up, as an example, if we pass in an XTS object with monthly returns and we only want to select June and December, it'll loop by select months to extract those monthly returns only for all of the years in our data set, which will be useful later down the script. As an example of what I'm trying to accomplish, we will take a look at SPY. So we first need to assign the symbol. We then need to get daily bars for that ETF using get symbols. And we're going to pass in that object into mo returns. We're going to set our XTS flag to false. And in this instance, we don't want to exclude any years. So this will generate a table for each year and the monthly returns along with the annual for us to work with. So we're going to use column means and get the average return for each of those months. And this will return the second table, which is just a summary of this first one. So we want to take a look at January through December. And given the averages for these months, I only want to invest in SPY if the average monthly return is greater than 1%. So here we see we have March, April, October, November, and December. So what would happen if we only invest in those particular months and exclude everything else? So here in the following block, we're only going to invest in good months only. We're going to reuse our function that we built, but this time we're going to set XTS equal to true. Given the table I showed you above, we only want to select the months that on average return over 1%. And then we're going to use the second function we built. We're going to pass in our XTS object and also the vector of months we want to select. We're going to merge SPY returns, which will represent the buy and hold returns, and also best months, which will represent the returns if we had only invested in months that on average were above 1%. We're going to fill any and A's with 0 and then plot the performance. So here in our chart, we see the black line representing the buy and hold versus investing in the best months only. And as we see, we almost get the same returns, but there is some bias to this as we're selecting the best months as of the end date and looking back. And that's why I added the exclude and years as a parameter so that we don't actually look ahead and skew our returns. So now let's take a look at an example using the selected sectors from spiders. We're going to start off by listing all the ETFs we want, which include the 11 sectors, and I added short-term bonds, inverse SPY, and SPY. And for each of the ETFs, we're going to get the monthly returns, and we're going to return the average monthly return for all of these ETFs. So the table it'll return is something like this, where in the next block we're going to pick the ETF with the highest return each month, and we have excluded the last 3 years in our calculation, so hopefully our returns won't be that biased. So let's take a look at the returns in sample and out of sample. We're going to use the monthly averages for our ETFs, and for each of the months we're going to extract the ETF with the highest return. This will return one XTS object, in which we will merge with the spider returns and see how well our strategy performs versus buying and holding SPY. So if we take a look at the plots here, we see that our strategy since 1998 outperforms buying and holding SPY. But let's take a look at the last 3 years and see how well it performed out of sample. And we see that we're still outperforming SPY in these last 3 years, but our max drawdown is worse than SPY. Lastly, let's take a look at the out of sample returns for this year. So as of this recording, we're still not done with March, but January and February outperformed SPY, but not for the given month. But overall, the returns were pretty good. But this is not investment advice. I do believe the strategy can be improved by, instead of using returns and picking the ETFs with the highest return each month, we can instead pick the ETFs with the highest Sharpe ratio and see what type of returns we can get using that methodology. But with that, guys, this concludes the video. So I'll go ahead and leave a link down in the description area to my Patreon where you can find the script. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.